Welcome to this explainer. We are diving into a massive paradigm shift happening right now on the web. For over 2 decades, digital discoverability was basically ruled by traditional link-based SEO and domain authority. But today, today we're unpacking the move toward AI-mediated search and discovering exactly how artificial intelligence decides which websites to actually trust and ultimately which ones it decides to cite. So, here's our roadmap. We're going to look at the limits of domain authority, explore the critical difference between visibility and machine trust, break down the actual AI evaluation pipeline, unpack the concept of machine trust itself, look at how citations are selected, and then wrap up with an actionable checklist. Let's kick things off with Section 1, the limits of domain authority, where the link graph meets the information graph. We're starting off by completely dismantling this overblown hype that SEO is dead. It's absolutely not dead, but it is fundamentally changing, right? We need to replace that hype with the reality of layered digital discoverability. Because look, it is incredibly frustrating to see a site with a massive domain authority of, say, 85, backed by literally millions of high-quality backlinks, suddenly get completely ignored by AI retrieval tools. It makes no sense, right? Well, this brings us directly to our core problem. Authority, at least in the traditional sense, is no longer enough to guarantee that you're going to be cited by an AI. This comparison brilliantly illustrates exactly why. Take website A. It's got a high domain authority, but under the hood, it's a complete mess. It's got conflicting schema markup, broken entity references, the whole shebang. Now compare that to website B. Its domain authority is much lower, sure, but its information is flawlessly consistent. See, AI retrieval systems operate on an information graph of consistent entities, claims, and validation signals, rather than a traditional link graph. So to an AI trying to verify a fact, that lower authority website B is actually the much more reliable source. Moving right along to Section 2, AI visibility versus machine trust. These are distinct layers of discoverability. We're going to see how this builds a hard boundary between two completely different, yet equally vital digital metrics that honestly get confused for one another way too often. The absolute most crucial takeaway here is that AI visibility and machine trust are not the same thing at all. AI visibility just measures if an AI system can actually find and retrieve your content. Is it fast? Is it well chunked? But machine trust? That's about whether the AI actually believes that content once it finds it. A site can be highly visible to an AI system for retrieval, but simultaneously deemed completely untrustworthy when it comes time for citation. Simply put, visibility gets you retrieved, but trust gets you cited. Okay, Section 3, the AI evaluation pipeline, the journey to citation. We're going to map out the exact horizontal journey a piece of content actually takes to become an AI answer. Because it's not just some single magical algorithm. It's a really rigorous multi-stage gauntlet. Content doesn't just rank anymore. It has to filter through these very distinct stages. First, discovery and retrieval. Then, understanding and validation. And finally, trust and citation. This sequential filtering pipeline is ruthless. If your content fails even a single step, boom, it is completely blocked from reaching the next phase. No exceptions. Let's look at those first 2 gates. Honestly, most technically competent sites passed stages 1 and 2 without much of a sweat. As long as your site isn't actively blocking AI crawlers and your content is broken down into solid, self-contained semantic chunks, meaning, a paragraph actually makes sense on its own without needing 3 paragraphs of preceding context, you are going to be highly visible to the machine. Now, here is where it gets really interesting. This third stage, trust signal verification, is exactly where high-authority domains completely crash and burn. You've been retrieved, sure, but now the AI starts scrutinizing your entity consistencies. Do your facts actually align? Do your schemas perfectly match your text? Because when they don't, you fail the trust stage, and you lose the citation, completely regardless of how great your initial content structure was. Section 4, unpacking machine trust, using the SiteNexis diagnostic framework. To properly diagnose these stage 3 failures, we really need a reliable framework, so we rely on the SiteNexis machine trust score. Now, it's absolutely crucial to understand that this is a diagnostic analytical model. It is not some internal AI metric leaked from Google, OpenAI, or Perplexity, okay? It's an observable methodology for understanding machine credibility. Let's break down the 5 weighted components of this framework just to see exactly how machine credibility is measured from the inside out. 30% relies on entity credibility. Are your claims consistent everywhere? Then, 25% is external validation, meaning do your same as links actually resolve somewhere real? 20% looks at schema alignment. Does your underlying code genuinely match your visible text without overclaiming? 15% checks for contradiction absence. And the final 10% measures trust degradation resistance, basically ensuring your trust signals remain stable over time. Let's look at how this plays out in the real world. Imagine an AI system reading your beautifully designed homepage and extracting this super clear founding date, founded in 2018 by Sarah Cole. To a human reader, hey, this is perfectly clear, right? But then the machine reader checks your structured data code and encounters this massive contradiction. The schema says the founding date is 2019. Maybe a developer just copy-pasted some old code, but to an AI evaluating consistency, this disagreement acts as a giant red flag. Think about it. If you don't even know when your own company was founded, why on earth should the machine trust you on complex facts? This matters so much because trust is asymmetric. It is incredibly easy to lose and painfully slow to rebuild. Plus, AI systems measure this on a compounding per-domain basis, not just per page. Because machine trust is formed through cross-source validation, a single, high-value contradiction on one page can literally undermine the credibility of dozens of perfectly optimized pages across your entire domain. Moving to Section 5, the citation selection process. How platforms like Perplexity choose. We need to connect this baseline of machine trust to the actual citation threshold. How do platforms that actively synthesize answers, like Perplexity, evaluate potential sources to actually show to their users? Systems like Perplexity look for some very specific structural signals. They want answer directness right away, usually right there in the first two sentences. They heavily favor extractable passages with dense, time-bound facts over long narrative fluff. They want clear chunk boundaries, reliable recency signals like date-modified schema, and a structural depth that maps cleanly to distinct subtopics. Simply put, if your content is vague or takes 3 paragraphs to make a single point, it's not going to be cited even if it is trusted. All right, Section 6, the Machine Trust Checklist, Actionable Steps for AI Readiness. With all this theory in mind, what can developers, publishers, and SEO professionals actually do right now? How do we bridge the gap between traditional SEO and this totally new era of AI visibility? By following this actionable checklist, you can establish an entity truth layer that basically cleans your information architecture from the inside out. First, you absolutely must audit your entity consistency everywhere. Next, make sure your schema certainly matches your visible content. Remember, no overclaiming. Clean up your historical data to remove any temporal contradictions. Start using legitimate same-as links for strong external validation. And finally, constantly monitor your trust signals so they don't randomly degrade during your next big site update. Remember, this isn't about throwing your old playbook away. SEO is absolutely not dead, and this isn't about replacing domain authority entirely. It's about building a new semantic layer that actively serves the machine reader, operating right alongside your traditional technical and content strategies. They form overlapping, complementary layers of digital discoverability. As we conclude this explainer, I really want to leave you with a provocative thought about the future of your digital footprint. I want you to take a hard look at your architecture and ask yourself, when machines encounter your website, what reason have you given them to believe you? Because visibility is no longer merely about ranking on a page of 10 blue links. It is entirely about becoming understandable, trustworthy, and citable by the very systems that are shaping the future of search. SiteNexis AI Visibility Intelligence. Be seen, be understood, be trusted, be cited. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.